We're going to call this meeting to order for the special Lee County UTV committee meeting for Wednesday, October 6th. Becky, could you do a roll call?
Sure. Jack Scrogstad,
Here.
Tom Wilson,
Here.
Danielle Allen,
Here.
Casey Considine, and Keen Hudson.
Present. All right, I believe Casey will be joining us via Zoom here shortly. He just joined. Casey, we're just doing roll call. All right, we just called roll call. Yep, he says he's here. Are you good with that? All right. In your packet is the minutes from the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at that?
Yes. The only change that I had was that I said in Wisconsin, you get it inspected at first. You don't get it inspected ever. I think what I was saying is I couldn't remember if you put your insurance information in the first time, but you don't do that either. I created a new account last night to pretend like I was first, and
Okay,
you put the make, model, your name, address.
so that's
Pretty
the
much
only
it.
change that you are
Yeah.
aware of?
Yep.
Anybody else with any other changes?
On the second page. Third paragraph said in my comments that I thought maybe you got inspected it for the first time, but you don't get inspected at all. I didn't know if you put insurance in.
All right, now, I've never been where they've changed the minutes, so do we approve that next meeting or?
What they do is I just make the change and it's posted to the website with the change.
As that, so other than that change, everybody else is fine with that? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right. Visitors, I see we have a couple. Any comments from the visitors that we have here? Just participating? Mike, you got anything that you comment? Okay. All right. So go to old business, which is the UTV ordinance discussion. And I just wanted to make a little comment before we go. Also, if we're going to speak, I'd like everybody to make sure they speak into their mic, make sure it gets all picked up. But one of the things I wanted to say is that I kind of put the cart before the horse the last meeting. As we were going through the ordinance, we were discussing it, and there was quite a bit of discussion on that. And I also learned that if we're going to change, remove, or add to this current draft ordinance, we're going to have to, in a sense, make a motion, second, and then vote on that particular motion to make those changes. So we're going to have to, and in a sense, have a vote on that particular topic. So I would like to have everyone present when we do that. I mean, I have no problem, just having discussions on it. But if we're going to then in actuality make those changes, I want to make sure that we're all here so that we could vote on that. Maybe we could, if we kind of get things moving on today, maybe we could do that on the next meeting to make sure that. So Casey, if there's a time that you could be present on that particular day so that you could be here to make those votes, is that possible? You could come up with a date?
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I mean,
Okay, all right.
It's just Wednesdays at 10 to 11:30 is when I have a staff meeting with my boss. So that's the time that's hard for me to get out of there. But if it was some other time, I could definitely be there.
Okay, all right, no problem. So we'll just try to do that, and then that would give us plenty of time for us to prepare our motions, to compose it. That way we have it, ready to go in case that way we could then pass that on to Charlie so he could insert it into the ordinance. Okay, now we had some questions that at the last meeting that we wanted to get Charlie's opinion on. I sent those questions and a couple of mine to Charlie, and if everyone has those answers. Just to kind of, what my question was is, excuse me, the ordinance in our current draft ordinance, it said 65 to 70 inches. And I had done some research on the different sizes of UTVs, and they were as large as 72. So I just asked them if that was something that we could, change. And obviously he said, yeah, we could make that change. So that would be a motion that we'd have to make to do that. And to follow up on that, there's a new law coming up that I will address that here in a second that deals with that size. So any comment on my question on there?
The original ordinance that we've already voted on once was, what was the size again?
It was 65 to 70 inches.
Oh, it was 65 on the original?
Let's take a look at it real quick. I don't want to say something that I'm not, bring it up here. The definition of the,
I thought we were changing it because of that state speed limit law.
right, yeah, and in the draft ordinance, it does say 65 to 70 inches width. So I was suggesting that it go a little bigger than that because some UTVs are larger than that. So that's what that was. Is that your question, or?
I'm just comparing it with others that have less than 65. That's why I didn't know what was on our original, right?
The reason, if it's less than 65, the state requires that we follow that 35-mile-an-hour speed in their definition of a UTV, less than 64 and less, then we have to follow that 35-mile-an-hour law that's in that one section.
Okay.
That's why we're
Because other townships don't have that. That's why I was wondering. So they're just not following state law then.
like which ones, like who?
I mean, like ours doesn't have the 65.
No, because your speed limit in Paw Paw is 35.
I can go on Chicago Road, it's 55. That's why I was curious.
Okay. Is that still in the corporation of
It's the
Paw
village of
Paw?
Paw Paw.
Okay.
And then the other question I had is I didn't know if our ordinance would supersede that anyway, like Lee County in general, if we said it could be less than.
Right. I think any of our ordinances that we pass, it would not necessarily oversee Paw Paw's ordinance, but would be anything outside this jurisdiction. Like Paw Paw's got their ordinance, so when you're on Paw Paw, you got to follow their ordinance. When you're outside of Paw Paw city limits, you'd have to follow Lee County's ordinance. That is my belief.
Trying to compare them between the different townships will get
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of confusing. So
Right. Same thing with Amboy. Amboy's got something probably different, just as different as two, so when you're operating in Amboy, you're going to have to abide by their particular rules as well. I don't think we can dictate what they can do, I don't think our ordinance can oversee that. That could be another question for Charlie too.
Our ordinances can't dictate what happens in a corporation, and like in the city of Dixon, we don't have any authority there.
Right. So I believe we have to follow the rules of Paw Paw, of Amboy, whatever they might be. And it's up to that UTV guy, that UTV operator to know what those particular rules are.
Yeah, realistically, I think it comes down to, we have authority on the highway, on the county roads, but not like the township roads or a road in the city. So that's, we don't have any authority as the county, just because it's in the county. If it's not on a county road, if it's on a township road, that's why we need to get the township on board with it.
And then once we have the township on board with that, they will incorporate our UTV if they agree to it.
Right.
Okay. Right. The The other question I asked was about the cockpit enclosure, and Danielle, you had threw that question out there, because some of them don't have doors. And his answer was, I do believe you would need to include doors as a cockpit enclosure. We allow Jeep Wranglers to do that all the time.
Do
He
not
says,
believe.
he says you do not believe
Okay.
we need to include doors. So I think as long as, in my opinion, you're harnessed in, or you shouldn't be going anywhere.
Under the state law, you don't have to have doors as long as you have a left outside and a right outside mirror, which these vehicles, I believe, have under the statute. As
Right.
long as they have left and right outside mirror, you do not have to have. Basically, because those doors have your mirrors mounted on vehicles.
And then I threw out a question to myself, from myself to him, in regards to has Lee County determined whether such vehicles may safely travel across the use and roadways or streets? And he basically says that no study has been done, and that he thought that we needed to at least consider that particular part of the law. And so if we kind of go back to that statute 625 ILCS 511 14 26.1, and that was in your information from last week. And under D David, the second paragraph, it reads, before permitting the operation of non-highway vehicles on its roadways, a municipality, township, county, or other unit of local government or the department must consider the volume, speed, and character of traffic on the roadways, and determine whether non-highway vehicles may safely travel on or across the roadway. Upon determining that highway safety may safely operate on the roadways, the adoption of the ordinance or resolution by a municipality, township, county, or other unit of local government or authorized department, appropriate signs shall be posted. So I met with Dave Anderson, the highway department, and he says, to his knowledge, there is no criteria to determine what roads are that he could sign off on that. And he says he couldn't really come up with anything to really do that. But he says, as a committee, if you could consider the volume, speed, the characteristic of the roadway, and you put forth parameters, then you could base it on those parameters. So that's something that that we'll need to do. Before, again, we put the cart before the horse. We need to get that at least looked at. And there's different ways that you can do that. He had given me information on where to determine the volume of particular roads, how many vehicles travel on. And just to get, we could figure out the speed and the character of the traffic. And I believe what his defined was a lot of semis, is there like industrial being traveled on that particular roadway, stuff like that. That was his determination of that. So I think we need to not ignore that, but we at least need to take and consider that. I don't know if we do that today. We don't have those particular tools in front of us to try to determine that, but it's something that we need to look at in the future. Question?
No, I was just a few comments real quick. As far as the UTVs, I have a place up in Gogebic County in the UP of Michigan, and we have to get trail stickers and then OTR stickers. And OTR stickers are over the road stickers. And like Danielle was saying, you just basically go in there, tell them what kind of machine it is, and away you go with the sticker. And then up there, there's speed limits for the UTVs. And I know John, I watched the meeting. I apologize, I missed the last meeting, but I saw that Sheriff Symington was concerned that if we change the speed limits from 55 to 45, that emergency vehicles would have to abide by that 5 miles an hour over that. But up there, the definition on their township roads and the county roads that we travel on, there's just a picture of a UTV, and there's an ordinance that says it's 45 miles an hour. So I mean, the regular speed limit for a motorized vehicle is 55, but there's a posted road with just a tag on it, and it shows that's part of the rules that you abide by, and it's part of the rules of the road. And if you get caught speeding over 45, you can get fined. So it's not changing all the speed limits per se. It's adopting a speed limit that we would say we're comfortable with if the machines are running. And obviously, the wider the better for stability on the machines. And that can also go in the form. I think we're going to have to do something a little bit different than we do up there, because we don't have to have turn signal. We have to have brake lights, headlights, and a rear view mirror. There is no side mirrors, but if that's part of what we're going to adapt, I think we need to have a form that shows here's what we need. You have to have rear view mirror, side mirrors, tail lights, blinkers, whatever it is. And whoever gets a sticker signs that piece of paper acknowledging that those are what it is. And if they get pulled over for whatever reason they're getting pulled over for, and they don't have a turn signal, they're going to get fined X. And if they don't have this, they're going to get fined whatever. I think that's the way where we're going to have to get to it down here, because up there is a completely different ball game as far as what they expect for turn signals and what have you. But if we're adapting that and we're going to have a speed limit, I think that's part of the things that someone's going to have to sign for. And then to Casey's point last week, and Keen, I know you're talking about 18 years old as opposed to 16 years old. I tend to agree with what Casey was saying. Like, you're going to have parents that are getting UTV stickers, and they're going to go out and they're going to let their kids who have licenses, because they're going to be on a licensed road, they have to have a driver's license. There's no way to police that part of it, I think. I think it's more along the lines of responsibility, and it doesn't change the rules of the road. The rules of the road are the rules of the road. And when they're in Dixon, they're going to have to adapt by what Dixon has. When they're in Paw Paw, they're going to have to do what Paw Paw says, unless, we come up to an agreement. But I think if everyone knows what they're signing when they get those stickers, they're apt to fines, and they're apt to whatever the police, if there's a violation, it's a moving violation. But I think with that being said, it would be keep everybody from not doing stuff. And that way we don't have anybody looking at the machines, and it's just more money from the county that we have to go and inspect a machine. Right? Well, yeah, you don't have to inspect a machine. This is what our requirements are. If you don't do it, these are the penalties it's going to cost you. So,
Charlie, is having a separate speed limit for UTVs on these roadways, is that something that's doable? And there's,
That way it
Well,
wouldn't reduce the speed for the vehicles in the 55, correct? The 40, like say you lowered it to say a 45, this would get rid of that issue that some people are concerned with, that if you do strap it down to a posted, all vehicles have to abide by that so-called speed limit.
just be UTV, this particular speed limit.
yeah, up there they've got like a 55 mile an hour zone. But if there's a tag, it's about the size of this piece of paper that has a UTV on it. All the UTV riders know it's 45 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And if the police pull you over and you're doing 60, it's a 15 mile an hour over speed limit.
Mhm.
And it's no more signage, and it's less signage if you change the speed limit and change everything from 55 to 45, because it's just a sticker that they would know when they sign for the stickers that that's a posted road and this is how fast we can go. But I don't know if that legally can happen. I don't know that,
I think you
Yeah.
stated more clearly what I was trying to ask the question on at the first, was because most places are 50, right? And they are getting bigger, but there are still some that are 50. So we're going to say, oh, you can't drive your UTV because it's 50 inches. And the reason for that and going up to 72 inches is what he is saying, is that they just have a different speed limit for those machines.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most places that I've been that have an ordinance.
Okay. All right, well, that's something that Maybe we have some good discussion here on that. I guess we're going to have to find out what the cost would be also to incorporate, to change the signs just, well, also too, we got to figure out what roads we're going to allow people to drive on. It may not be all of them, maybe some of them based on this, what we're considering too, the volume and.
Well, right now, I know in Lee County, there are some county roads which have that reposted at 45 miles per hour anyway.
Right. I think Lowell Park
So,
Road
I
has,
mean,
Lowell Park Road is pretty
Lowell
much
Park
gone.
Road
Is
and
gone.
because of safety issues, that's one of the main reasons they, in Wildcat and that, so, I mean, got that to look at, actually, if it's favored.
Mhm. So we're gonna figure out which roads, and maybe not all townships are gonna let us on there too, so that might limit the amount of signage that we'd have to put up there, and then the cost of the signs. And you're saying that just next to the sign, they just have like a sticker of some sort, not a.
It's an aluminum sign, just like speed limit signs are, but it's just it's a small picture, it's about the size of this. And when there's speed limit signs posted at 55, 3 feet down, there's a trail, so you know that you're on a trail. And that's another thing, to your point, maybe not all roads are accessible. And then we can have trail maps to show people where they can get from town to town to county, whatever. But the only problem with doing that, Jack, is let's say I live on a road that's posted and I want to take my UTV down that road to get to a trail
Mhm.
or get to a road. Is that legal? So that's the sticky point is,
Right.
but they just have them underneath there and they're small signs. They're just a picture of a UTV. Is all it is.
That's similar to that snowmobile sign.
That's exactly what that's what it is.
It lets you
Okay.
know you're
It's-
on a valid route and you
Yes.
have to obey.
And if you're on that route and you get pulled over for speeding, you might be doing 55. But when you sign that piece of paper that the UTV ordinance is, I'm just making up numbers, 45 miles an hour.
Mhm.
And they can get a ticket up to, they're doing 60 miles an hour, they're gonna get a 15 over, just like you would in a car doing 70 miles an hour and a
Right.
55. It's just the rules of the road.
Right.
So.
Okay. Something to drill down even more when we get going. All right. Any more on that? Any talk more on that? All right. I was shown the Illinois passed a public act. Excuse me.
We didn't talk about the one question in here about the windshield. That was question number 3.
Oh, number 3, I'm sorry. Since the vehicle is moving away from the state's definition of highway, would there be a requirement for windshield and wipers? And his answer was, I do not believe there would be a requirement, but certainly something that would be that could be included into the committee on that request. So it's not a requirement or a non-requirement based on the changing of the definition. But if that's something that if we want to add windshield and wipers to that, we could make that motion and add that requirement. So when we get to that part, we can discuss what we're going to add and subtract or change in this ordinance. We'll have to get to that part of it. Okay. So came across it was given to me, a new act, public act becomes effective January 1st. And it's Public Act 1020312, and it changes the definition to a particular vehicle. They call it large non-highway vehicle. Means any motorized off-highway vehicle designed to travel primarily off-highway, greater than 64 inches and not more than 75 inches in width, having a manufacturer's dry weight of 3,500 pounds or less, traveling on 4 or more highway tires, designed with a non-straddle seat and steering wheel for steering control, except equipment such as lawnmowers. And I reached out to Charlie and I asked him if this would change our ordinance, because now they're basically in a way defining what we're trying to define as a UTV in our ordinance, except they're calling it a large non-highway vehicle. And then actually says, has the dimensions of 64 to 75. And here I was thinking 72, but here they're actually making it a little wider. So I don't know if it's something that, would we have to wait on this, Charlie, for this act to come into place when we write our ordinance, or would it just kind of roll into it?
I missed the last part of what you said, but I guess what I would look at is once this is passed, once this is put into effect, and you've got this definition that is primarily encompassing what the definition of the non-highway vehicle in our ordinance. The only difference is we've included that it must include highway tires. So you've got a legal interesting question, or an interesting legal question in terms of what effect it may have, because even right now, if we look at the state statutes and the ordinance that we have for UTVs, it requires that you may have UTVs on roadways, just like Dixon has here, of 35 miles per hour or less, and the definition that goes along with that. Now, if you've got, because it also includes the non-highway tires, so if you've got a vehicle that has highway tires and is out on the county roads where there's no ordinance and has nothing along those lines, are they actually breaking the law at that point because they don't meet that definition? So it's an interesting legal dilemma that you have, in that we're trying to frame our ordinance around what the statute is right now, or even guessing what it could be in the future for the state statute. And we're kind of stuck in this limbo for the time being, because it's obvious what they're trying to direct this towards.
It just seems like they're, like, in a way, they're moving towards these UTVs being allowed on the roadways. I mean, that's just kind of like what I'm gathering.
But again, if you have no ordinance whatsoever, and you have a vehicle such as this driving down the roadway with highway tires, and assuming that this isn't part of it whatsoever at this point, this 64 to 75 inches, and we've got a vehicle that's 70 inches, are they actually in violation of the law in that they do not meet the definition of the off-highway vehicle?
But wouldn't our sticker dictate the fact that they're getting an OTR tag to go on our highways legally, and they're gonna have to abide by those rules?
Correct. And I think if you're going to go down that route, it's a good idea to have them signing off on an acknowledgement that not just that they have
Right.
the specific type of vehicle with the specific type of requirements, but that they understand that there's a, we'll say, quote unquote, trail system that they have to follow.
So the difference is we're saying we want DOT tires and the state's saying we don't care if you have that.
Yeah, that's kind of like what we said, but I think we need to have DOT tires. That's just my opinion. I think we need to leave that part alone, but
At 45 miles an hour or less, the tires that people have on their UTVs are good for that speed. And a lot of people, you put radial tires on there, but that's a big expense. A lot of people that may use them here and they're taking them to Wisconsin and want to go in the mud, the radial tires are not the answer. But if the tires are legal, the way they have them on there at 45 miles an hour or less, yeah,
Who
I don't
are
think
we
we
to
have
say?
who are we to say that I don't know. I understand what you're saying, but the radial tires at going 45 miles an hour really doesn't make a difference. It's just for noise more than anything at 45 miles an hour.
Mhm.
If they're doing 70 miles an hour, those tires are illegal. They don't, they're not supposed to go that speed.
right.
And, far be it from us to say, if it's 45 miles an hour and that's what we're trying to push, I'm just making up numbers. I don't see where it would make a difference, because they are legal as far as the speed limit on a tire. So,
And to your point, people travel. And so now I have to have one set of tires for Illinois and another set for
Mhm.
a different trail, like
Sure.
Wisconsin, Michigan, who don't have DOT approved tires as a requirement. Or
I'd
the
love
state of
to have radial
Illinois.
tires.
It almost seems like you want to keep the, I call them flotation tire.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna have a speed limit of 45. Actually,
I don't know that number, but I mean,
but we'll say
but
if
you
that's,
could,
if that's a safe, you know what I mean?
Right.
I like what you're saying because obviously you're a user and you do this, so you know the ultimate limits on a lot of these vehicles. And if 45 those tires are, I mean, it's something we have to look at, but I would think that it addresses as far as if they want to reduce the speed for the ordinance to 45 for UTVs. And I think, there's a lot of play right there.
so long as they meet the parameter, yeah, because a lot of, and then you can also get, a lot of the UTVs come with tires that 45 would be acceptable. A lot of UTVs come with tires that are acceptable up to 60 miles.
That's what I was
But
gonna say.
if we set the limit of the speed limit, it's not saying they're not gonna go over 45 miles an hour, but by law, they can only go 45 miles an hour. And we're protecting ourselves, I think, by saying that's the speed or I'm just saying, I don't know if it's 45 feet, I don't know what the number is. I'm just throwing it out there.
It's
So,
55, it's 50, we say it's 55 and tires gotta be rated for
Well,
that.
my
You gotta
cons-
follow the law.
My concerns like yours, and we'll get it, I'm sure, ironed out, is our liability issue here. Because let's face it, if you look at the manufacturer specs, they clearly say exclusively manufactured for off-road use and recommend in our label, do not operate on roadways.
Sure.
So this is something we gotta look at. I'm looking at that.
I think there's a reason they do that and it's not because they don't believe that they're.
That's
they're
right,
on
but
the
that's what
vehicle.
they're saying. That's what I'm going by. That's what I'm going by, that this is what they're saying. I know why they're putting it out there. This is what they're saying. So this is what my feelings are as far as the liability issue. If we got to work with this thing.
Sure.
And I think most of us here realize we can't get this thing passed in 2 months. There's a lot of work on this to find out the ins and outs and everything on this. But my main issue is the liability issue.
sure.
On our roadway. Where's our liability at? Because if they start filing whatever, everybody files stuff all the time, but they say, wait a minute, we want to tie ourselves up in this matter for years. I don't feel like being tied up in that. But
Sure.
like I said, there's a lot to look at, a lot we got to really think hard about, decide on. So we get this thing going and get it through.
Yeah, and a lot of those machines that when they say they're not safe to ride on roadways, they've got aggressive tread tires that when you're making a turn on asphalt, it's gonna be slipperier than gravel or dirt or whatever. But they also have grass tire and there's all sorts of different tires. But I think if we set a speed, would that relieve us, Charlie, of liability, saying we have a signature here that they signed off that the speed limit was 45 and they had an accident and it was investigated to be 60 miles an hour. I mean, would that relieve us of liability?
In theory, yes, but the problem that I brought up before, and I don't think that's ever really been addressed, I think Jack was probably touching on it earlier, is there needs to be something done to show that these specific types of vehicles can travel on specifically Lee County roadways. I know there's been studies that have been done in Colorado and California, all over the place, but I think we can all agree that coastal roadways and the roadways in the Pikes Peak are not going to be the same as Lee County. So that's my concern about it in terms of the liability standpoint.
And Charlie, to your point, as far as studies go, we live in Lee County and they're normally 1 mile squares. And that's a lot better than what we travel on up in Michigan. So, I mean, I think the straight and true, I just think it'd be safer on our roads than it would be up in Michigan and Wisconsin where I'm at, because there's curbs everywhere. But I understand what you're saying. I get it.
So, Jack, do you want to give this task of looking at the roads and doing a study to the Solid Waste and Transportation Committee, since they're the road authority? Like, I mean, we already have a committee that their job is to look at transportation. So it really should go to, in my opinion, transportation, and they should put it on their agenda. I'm on that committee, by the way, just for transparency, but like,
Right.
that committee should look at the road use. They're the road authority.
I think that's probably not a bad idea, is to kind of run it by them and just, say that we're reaching out to them to try to get this thing done. Yeah, we could
That
ask
makes
them
sense.
we could ask them to put that on there. I mean, do we need a motion to put that on their agenda, or are we just able to ask them? Are we aware?
Yeah, I think we just post it on our agenda. I think if Doug's the chair of that committee now, I think if you reach out to him and say, hey, we need to have this survey done or this study done to see what roads are safe. And what, that should be, it's in their wheelhouse. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, now you guys can tell me, no, we want to handle that here in this committee. And if we do, that's fine. I'm on both of them, so it doesn't make a difference to me.
Right.
To
Yeah,
me,
I'm
I think
personally
it's
a
a good
little,
idea.
I'm personally a little nervous about it, but yeah, I think that's probably something that
I
we
think it
could
makes,
probably do. All right, I'll reach out to Doug and I'll ask him to help us with that particular section of the law. Then I'll send that to him so he can look at it.
yeah,
Hey,
like-
Casey, just a comment. I think it's a good idea just to prep you though for your meeting. I just talked to Dave Anderson yesterday and Jack, as well. Dave is more than willing to help out with this. He just needs some criteria that the county would like to see as far as what they need for this study. Cause it's different than doing a speed study on a roadway like he's done, in the past. There's certain criteria that he would like to address for you, whatever that criteria is. And I think that's probably what this committee or your committee, Casey, should come up with is some criteria for Dave so they can actually do a legitimate study. What kind of outcome does the county want to see from this study? And whether it's vehicle volume, on certain roadways. And if we've got, like you and I talked yesterday, Jack, Lowell Park has a greater traffic volume than US 30 in Lee County. So is that a criteria that we need to use to allow or not allow UTVs on certain roadways? Is it vehicle volume? Is that one criteria? I'm just throwing that out right now just for discussion, but that's something that Dave's going to want from one of these committees so he can get started on this specific study, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And-
I feel safer probably doing that. I hate to put it onto another committee, but I think this is like Casey says, in their wheelhouse and get a recommendation from them if possible. So, all right, I'll reach out to Doug on that.
and maybe other areas, that committee can research. I mean, we're not the first people to do these studies, right? So
Right.
we shouldn't have to recreate
Yeah,
start from scratch on something. There's got to be other counties, states, towns that have done these types of studies. What criteria did they use? And
yeah, that's the thing that David said too. He's reaching out to his counterparts in the other counties, and he's going to ask them what have they've done, and maybe to see if he's got anything there. He's got a conference he's attending today and tomorrow, so he's going to be asking that in the public too. What we're asking also. So I think with Transportation Committee and David, we kind of give them a little bit of homework to do. Hopefully, they can help us out on this particular deal.
I think Sheriff Simonton, I think what he said is spot on. I mean, whatever committee does, it's going to have the criteria, which they're evaluating it. So that way, if it ever does get asked, like, well, how did you determine it was safe or unsafe? What criteria did you use? You have to have a standard that you're measuring to. So
Exactly.
whether it's miles of speed limit, rural characteristics of the road, like rural characteristics of the, county where you're operating at, whether it's the type of pavement, whether it's the amount of curves in the road, all those things I think we just need to document and have, this is the criteria we used, speed, to determine whether it was safe or whether we needed to lower the speed from the posted speed limit to a set speed or what. But yeah, I think we have to look at volume, all those things. We just need to outline the criteria. So when it gets tested, how did you determine that this road was off limits or the speed was such? We can kind of have something to say, here's the standard we use. Maybe it's not perfect. We don't know everything, but here's what we used when we tried to determine that.
I agree with you, Casey. I think it's good points, and the survey will speak for itself. The high peak areas, we'll need to know that and everything, the road, amount of volume.
You can use the statistics. I mean, the sheriff might have some statistics for us on like roads where there's, a lot of speeding. And, we can look at our historical data to say, we traditionally have a lot of issues on this road. So, those things can be considered. We just have to make that list of what the criteria is.
You also can figure out how many accidents, basically areas, deer accidents for one thing,
Sure,
but the other accidents.
sure.
Good input, Casey.
Right, and Danielle brought up something about not reinventing the wheel, so I reached out to Dixon City the other day. Lieutenant Whalen is in the house right now too, so if you've got any additional questions on him, but I talked to him about a bunch of different things, and the comment or the conversation of registering. Well, I'll just say it. They've got the registration process already. They've got the plates. They've got the renewal stickers. They're doing it already. And it was kind of suggested, not that he can make that decision or anything, that maybe the city could actually, when we pass this ordinance and we pass out the permits, if the city would be willing to take those ordinance fees for us, having them sign the Lee County ordinance, that they understand what the ordinance is, and then documenting the registration, the plate, they've got the plates already. And then we could maybe even give them a percentage of that registration fee. And for the purposes of the decals, the plates, and, the database, and just administrative purposes. Would that be something that, that way we don't have to worry about the sheriff having to do this? Again, reinventing the wheel?
I thought we had said in the last meeting that we would just do the treasurer, like we were making it more difficult, right? Somebody gets a sticker.
I reached out to the
Yeah.
treasurer and she's not interested in any way doing that.
Okay.
Matter of fact, she said, why don't you have city do it? That was her reply. Because they're doing it already.
I mean,
Casey?
I mean, it doesn't, I think that's great that the city may have offered that solution. They already have it. I don't see the money that we're going to generate from the fee of getting the sticker is, as you and I had talked, Jack, is more of an administrative fee. It's from handling the fee and taking that application and reviewing it to make sure they have their license, that the picture's filled out correctly, that they sign for the ordinance so they understand it. That it's $50 to do that, because I mean, you're going to pay somebody, a half an hour worth of labor to do that. So I don't think the county's going to really generate much money if we collect it ourselves and maintain a database and all that. If the city's willing to do it, I'd be willing to give them all the money. For as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care who does it, as long as they maintain good records and do
We
it.
might need some extra funds for these little signages and the placement of those signages.
Sure.
These,
Sure.
for the speed limit, if that's something that we're looking at wanting to do too. So
I think my question was more about not necessarily the Dixon versus the treasurers. Are we doing plates versus just a sticker?
I think the plates, in my opinion, again, this would be something that we would put on a motion and vote on it. But I think a plate might personally sticks out a little bit more. It's more visible to law enforcement and to that complaining, the complainant that might be complaining about the particular use of that vehicle. He could identify it with the color, and hopefully he can get that plate number and go from there. That's why I was gearing towards that particular. Again, that's something that as a committee we'd have to vote on, but that's just something that I'm throwing out there. And if it gets shut down, then it gets shut down. But that's just my thoughts.
The OTR stickers up where we're at, you have to display them in the right-hand side behind the passenger in the rear window. And they're colored just like the police look right now, for this year's green, next year's purple, or whatever. It is not as visible, but if we're gonna give out, if we're doing $100 the first year, wouldn't we make them also, if they want to license, if we're gonna go through the expensive license plates, charge them for the license plate on top of the fee? I mean, why would we
And what kind of money, Clay, is the license plate as opposed to, just having a sticker that's stuck in the window?
Per plate, Clay, what was it for each plate? What was the cost to the city? $13 of the hundred of the first initial, and then that person keeps that plate. They just put that sticker, that renewal sticker in the corner, kind of like you get on your regular license plate.
I guess I'm just concerned about visitors. I mean, maybe this isn't geared towards that, but it's definitely, the money that we're making is not going to be revenue generating, right? What's revenue generating is people saying, oh, I want to go maybe camp at Yogi's, right? Because now they have a UTV and I can
True.
drive around and visit different establishments, right? So just sometimes I wonder about having the plate, making it more difficult for,
Because if somebody comes from out of state,
they're not going to go
they
buy a
want to start
plate.
down there, they're not going to want to have it to get a plate. They should be able to get a sticker. I mean, that's how they do it up there. But
Yeah.
again, it is visible for the police to see a number on it and what have you, but that's just a suggestion.
My opinion on that, I think that right now, I think if we start seeing or getting, more tourism from these particular other states or these other counties that want to come here to go to Yogi, I think then we could change and, make it different. But I think, we're taking our first step. I thought this would probably, again, this is just my thoughts on the plate idea. Again,
Or maybe you get a visitor's pass for a 2 week or a weekend thing where you can get them to stick a sticker on it. I mean, people are going to come. There's hundreds of people from our county. They go to Darlington, they go to Black River Falls, and we are taking all of our money and all of our stuff and we're taking it out of our county. And for every dollar we spend in our county, it's going to come back 10 times. I mean, I think that there will be people, if there's a system where they can go from village to village or, can ride. I think there's going to be a demand for that.
yeah, we could maybe not make such a more permanent type of plate, but, kind of like a do not enter sign, like those plastic ones, whatever. And it could be
Sure.
made by the same guy that's making the plates, a temporary pass.
Mhm.
And that's something that they've got to pick up and turn in and make it last just temporary with a date on it.
No,
between
pick
these
up
two
and
dates.
turn in.
Clay, are your plates metal? Okay. Okay, well, a lot of states, I won't say for UTVs, but they have what they call a temporary tag too. It's a cardboard tag.
Mhm.
And the size of the motor, years ago, the license applied for motorcycles were very small.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, we could always
There's a
have.
visit called
we
the
could always have
visitors,
something
whatever,
like
like a 30-day or whatever. Well, that's good, give it whatever period of time.
Because the thing about when you go up there, you can go to BP gas stations and get tags.
Yes.
You can go to the hardware
Walmart.
store and get tags. You can go to you could sell them at Ace Hardware. Right. And so long as they're turning in the income with the information, they get $10 for every registration up there, but it has to be accessible because some people won't come in till Friday night and they're going to want to get a tag while the courthouse is closed and the city isn't going to be there. I mean, there's going to be, but that's how they do it up there.
Hey, Jack, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we were talking about doing the license plates. It would be similar to what Dixon is doing. So are we talking about if you get one through Dixon or through Lee County for that matter, is it going to be the same license plate? Or how many of these license plates are people going to have? Are you going to go to Amboy and you have to get another license plate? And if you're traveling between the two, are you going to have 3 license plates on?
Well, this was, again, my thought. And again, I just brought this up because I had a conversation and with the city. And if Dixon City is kind of the largest city we have in town, and they've already got something already started, and we want to incorporate. I was envisioning that that a person who lives out in the county who wants to get a UTV, they would go to Dixon City and get a UTV permit. They would sign that particular document. But they would also, when they're signing that they received a copy of the Lee County ordinance, they would also sign a copy of the Dixon ordinance, because they're going to be obviously different. That because they may drive to Dixon. Dixon may be the more hotter hotspot. Now, when you got your permit for Pawpaw, did you guys sign an ordinance permit or nothing like that? Did you guys pay a fee over
Yep,
there?
$25.
$25
year.
fee?
Yep.
So like if they wanted to do that, they would automatically get access to Dixon Cities with that license plate with our plate. Grant them access. They wouldn't necessarily have access to Pawpaw unless they've got the permit to Pawpaw. So they're going to have to get that Pawpaw permit in my opinion. So yes, it would just be a plate that would cover Dixon City and the county roads all in one.
So, taking Pawpaw into account with that too. So if you've got the Dixon City plate and we're saying that's where all of them have to originate, is that right?
Right.
Okay, so
That's just my suggestion.
So I mean, you're gonna have somebody that's, out in Stewart that needs to come to get their first plate from Dixon. And then if they want like the Pawpaw one, they have to get the sticker from Pawpaw too, or?
Unless Pawpaw agrees that the Lee County ordinance is good enough for them. And that's
Yeah.
something that we have to discuss with Pawpaw.
And I guess that's why I think if you're gonna do this, a sticker seems like a better option. I know Dixon's already started there with the plate and everything, but if you've got a sticker that encompasses all of Lee County, because you're gonna have townships or municipalities, including Dixon, that are gonna sign off and saying we respect what Lee County has done and we're getting on board with that permit as well, then you don't have people that are gonna have to drive from Stewart to come get a Dixon City plate and then get whatever else permit they may need. If you've got a centralized location or even just being able to do it online, and then it's either going to be shipped to you or picked up somewhere or whatever it may be, it seems like a better option than just having people traveling all over to come to Dixon to grab something.
This is why we're having this meeting. Because we got a lot of ideas, a lot of different ideas, different points of view.
But and I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jack, but like, again, and Charlie, I think the online thing would be great. If you could afford to wait for the sticker to be shipped to you or whatever, that's a great idea. But you could also, if there's a hardware store or something down in Amboy that's more centrally located where people are only traveling so far to get stuff. Because Friday nights, people are going to bring their machines in here and wanting to get a sticker. And if we're in a government building, we're not going to be here Saturday,
True.
so.
And I was only thinking, since they would have to come to Dixon, whether it be the sheriff's department to get that permit, where Dixon, they're already here and they're coming to Dixon to get that decal. Now we're thinking about, nothing different than, who sells those 50/50 tickets for Amboy. You got all these different locations, sell these, they could have these decals and they can get access to it.
$10 a ticket for registering it, and we collect them weekly. Even the the trail riders,
They help.
you
with a
get
lot of
you
that.
get those guys. They can police this. They can go out there and sign for stickers. I mean, because they're gonna have to sign for X amount of stickers and do everything and turn it in.
Right.
They could be a help as far as weekend passes and stuff. As
They
well.
also help a lot with signage and,
Good. Picking
Yeah.
up trash.
yep.
Yeah, we do it up there.
I think you have to think about that too. If you're going to have other entities that are going to be doing the permitting process, the sticker process, is it going to be that they purchase so many from the county and they sell those permits at their establishment, or how is that going to work out?
I would think that you give them a pack. I mean, Steve Dilger or Clay came in and said, well, we need 20 permits. At the end of every week or whatever they have sold, they bring that money in and then they still have stickers. I mean, I don't think we'd make them prepay for them. They would pay for them as they sell them to the people that are wanting to use them. And then bring in the paperwork that's signed that says that they're abiding by the ordinances, understand the speed limits and understand all the requirements for the machines. And then if they need more stickers, you just give them more until they sell them out, until they need more.
We could always put out there too, what businesses would be interested in selling these ordinances. They'll do it. And then have them sign a contract.
Maybe fishing licenses in Ace Hardware. They get paid so
Correct.
much. So of course they'll definitely want to participate.
I think those are all great ideas. I mean, as it evolves, but to start it, do we want to have, what does it hurt? I mean, yeah, that it would inundate maybe the city of Dixon, if they were taking the money and doing it. But at first, to get started, we can expand the program as much as we want once we get going. But do we want to start with having one central location? If you live in Paw Paw, you can drive to Dixon to get your tag once a year. I mean, and if it gets bigger and we move it to the city of Paw Paw or the city of Amboy or the hardware stores or whatever, fine. But like, I think we need a starting point.
Start simple, what you're saying.
Yeah, I'd start small. And I know it's going to blow up. I know there's going to be a lot of traffic right out of the gate.
Right.
But if we don't start somewhere, then we're going to try to have this perfect system in place of Ace Hardware, all the different businesses selling them, and it's going to be so complex. I don't know that we'll ever be able to get there. But if we start simple, we might be able to start simple. I'm wrong. I mean, it's open for discussion, but that's just my thought.
Either way, whether you start with just Dixon or I still think personally, the plate,
It's
I
too
probably
much.
wouldn't do. To be honest, I'm not gonna go buy a plate. I can drive around where I'm at anyway. So
Well, the plate
I-
would be included in that particular fee. You pay that $100 start fee.
Right,
and
what
You
I'm
get that plate, period.
just saying as a regular community member, I probably would not drive to Dixon and buy any plate when I can drive in my area anyway. So I'm going to other places. The
Well,
sticker's just
visibility
easy.
wise, I'm for plates. That's for a lot of reasons, Not just law
That's just,
enforcement, but
that's
for
just the law
citizens.
enforcement and us, that.
Well, but no, I'm talking citizens. If someone
Right.
wants to identify a vehicle, that's how a lot of times the best information you get is a tag,
Mhm.
I don't think every other vehicle on any roadway has got to have a tag one way or the other. I don't care what the vehicle is. If it's going to be legal on the roadway, you got to have a tag on it, plate.
Sheriff, quickly, your 2 cents on the registration plate versus a decal.
It's whatever the committee decides either way. I think I hear the arguments on both sides. I think it's fine either way, as long as the sticker is, like Tom pointed out, different colors for different years. So we know, just like our registration sticker on our plates now. The other comment I had was two, actually, is one, I think we really need to focus on getting the other villages, cities on board with the Lee County ordinance. That makes things much more simple and less complex. If Dixon's ready to get on board with a Lee County ordinance, Paw Paw, Amboy, Ashton, whoever, and the other townships, then this will make things much more simple, because you can drive anywhere in Lee County now with your sticker, regardless of where you purchase it. You all have good ideas as far as that goes, making it, more convenient for the citizens that want to ride. I'm all about that. On the out-of-state stickers and people that may want to ride in Lee County that live in Wisconsin, Michigan, wherever. I'm just thinking about this from a boating standpoint, since I don't have a UTV, but when I go up to Wisconsin and Minnesota and go fishing, I got my DNR sticker. I got my Illinois registration plate on my trailer. I don't owe them anything. I might have to buy a fishing license there, yes, of course, but I don't have to do anything as far as registering or re-registering my vehicle in those other states. It's a reciprocal agreement. Could we have that periodically for the start of this ordinance for those people from Michigan, Wisconsin, wherever that want to ride in Lee County? As long as they have a valid sticker from their home state, we could honor that for the first season or two and see how it goes. If we start getting a big influx of things, maybe you could say, you know what, if you want to ride down here, we're going to charge you $25 for the use of the Lee County roads during your time period down here. But right now we have a reciprocal agreement on registration with other states. So it's just an option. I'm not saying that has to happen now.
Great idea.
That's a great idea. And anytime we can get anybody to come down, I mean, we don't want to,
That's a great idea.
I mean.
They're going to spend money down here, right? They're going to
Exactly right.
they're going to go to our convenience stores. They're going to go to our bars and taverns. And so that's what we really want. That's where the revenue is going to be generated, not from the permit fees.
That's a great idea.
So
Make it simple. Make it simple.
Makes it simple for us.
So one of the things that I think we need to do is to kind of finalize the ordinance itself, like what we're looking for. In that regards to certain things that we want in it, whether age, windshields, what we don't want in there, 72 inches 75 inches, before we can go to these cities, these townships, I think we need to have that working document before we can get them on board, because they're gonna say, well, what's your ordinance say? Before we like to do that. And I think we're a little further from that, especially when we need to get that transportation committee to do that part, but we can do the other parts pretty quickly. Charlie, in this ordinance, do we need to spell out like where you're going to get your decals or your registration, or does that come like at an administrative type ruling?
That's more administrative and procedural stuff. That doesn't have to be included in there. No.
So if we was to say our next meeting, iron out majority of these things other than the speed, because that we want to get that from the safety, or not the safety committee, the transportation committee. You know, kind of not have that in there yet until we get maybe a recommendation from them. That would be a better thing to have done, at least get through some of the basic stuffs.
Yeah, I have a quick question on the speed limit thing, and maybe Tom and probably Sheriff can probably chime in on this one too. So if you have a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit and you're going to have the other posting that's going to be somewhat below there that says 45 for UTVs, how does that impact traffic flow from what you've seen, Tom, either in Wisconsin, Michigan, wherever you've been? And how does that impact if you've got motor vehicles that are traveling behind one of these UTVs that's going 45 because they're legally supposed to be at that time, and you've got motor vehicles that are supposed to be going 55? Does that jam up the roadways very much? How's that going to play out?
Sheriff, you can answer that. I mean, is 45 legal and a 55 as far as speed limit goes?
I'm not asking about the legal. I'm asking.
Well, my opinion, Charlie, would be what's been done in the past. I think we're all of the age where we saw the different speed limits out on the interstates for trucks and vehicles. And now we've kind of gone to the step where we're trying to make everything close to the same, because you want the traffic pattern to be similar. You don't want somebody traveling 45 and somebody else going 70, you know, for instance. And I think with that movement, we should probably try to keep everything similar. Even if you talk to Dave Anderson, when he does his speed studies, it's not because we believe a roadway needs to have a reduced speed. He monitors the true traffic volume and their normal speed of travel through that particular area. Like, for instance, Lowell Park Road. When you reduce the speed limit, the county board reduced the speed limit from 55 to 45. The traffic study did not recommend that. If you look at that study, the recommended speed limit for that road at the posted 55-mile-per-hour speed limit was 55, because that was the normal speed of traffic flowing through that area. Now, the county board can go ahead and reduce that if they want, and they did, but the study didn't show that. So I think what we need to do is try to figure out, in my opinion, what roadways are safe from the criteria that we set up for the engineer to do the study, and maybe designate those roadways as your route of travel for the UTVs rather than mess with the speed limits. But again, I'm not a UTV rider, so I don't know how you guys feel about that. I would rather have all the traffic pattern being the same rather than putting up different signage for different vehicles and things of that nature. But just my
And I
opinion.
guess that's what my concern was, is that if you're going to have motor vehicles that are traveling on these roadways that are going to be going 55, and we know that there's going to be people going faster than that, and you're going to have UTVs that can't exceed 45 miles per hour, just like you'd have on 88 where semis can't exceed a certain mile per hour when you get to around Aurora or around that area. They have they got the 2 lanes there that they're able to easily pass. We're going to have just 2 lanes here that's going to have the yellow checkered, or you're going to have a solid 2 lines and they can't pass. I don't want accidents occurring because we get people that are going to get frustrated and make stupid decisions.
We kind of have that today with like tractors and farmers and everything. There's 2 different, I mean, we have it now. People are driving the UTVs on the road with SMVs on the back of their Rangers right now going 35. If anything, this ordinance will make it legal for the people who are doing it or the people who aren't doing it because they're afraid it's not compliant. But I think once again, the study in the criteria around how we evaluate what roads are safe is going to lead us to where we go. Whether it's 55 and 45 or keep it at the posted speed limit or not allow it at all. On certain,
To answer one part of your question, like in Wisconsin, when we ride, they do have UTV routes with maybe sometimes slower limits, but other times not. But I think the difference is they must not have that state law that says you can only go so fast if you're under this size, right? Because that's what I think like my UTV can do 55 miles an hour down the road. Fine. But I don't know that it's 65 inches wide is the problem, right? So I think that's where the problem, like, so in Wisconsin, we don't have a traffic backup because everybody's just doing 55.
Thank you. That's what I was wondering, because I just didn't know how they dealt with it up there, if they have two different varying speeds.
They do have varying speeds up where I'm at as well. And then, and like she said, it's very, there's cars doing 40 miles an hour that UTVs are passing to go around on those roads as well. I mean, it's just, I think it's the rules of the road that dictate if there's a double yellow line, you're not supposed to pass. And if there's a, I think the rules of the road dictate that, but that's just my opinion.
All right, well, I believe Daniel has to leave, so let's try to set up another meeting. And on this meeting, I'd like to maybe work through the draft that we have, except we're gonna have to hold off on a couple of the things such as the speed. We want to wait for that to come back. Kind of go through some of those different parts that are there, some things that we might want to add there, things we want to subtract there or change. So for our next meeting, if we could have everybody present, I'm pretty much available. Like Keen, what days are you good for?
I'd have to check. I don't have the calendar. I have to check with what's going on. I know next Wednesday, we have our public safety meeting.
Right. Yeah, I don't think next week is good at all. October 18th, 19th, I'm open. Tom, 18th and 19th.
I'll have to check for you, but I mean, is that what day of the week is that?
That's on Monday or Tuesday?
Yes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays work for me is the best.
Keen, 18th, 19th, 20th.
Once again, I'm gonna have to check my calendar. It's got all kinds of.
Yeah,
numbers.
you're right. Danielle,
The 18th right now, the sooner the better, then I can definitely, not the 20th, the 18th or 19th.
okay. Casey?
sorry, I was getting to the unmute. Yeah, it just depends. Like, I mean, just depends what time of the day and when you want to do it, like.
Let's say 9, 10. I don't know if there's is there anything going on? Becky, any meetings going on? Okay. Well, if we did the 19th, that's what Danielle could at 10 o'clock. Casey, is that something where you could be in person for an hour?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Sure. Kane, you're going to look
I'll
to
check.
see?
That's Tuesday.
That would be Tuesday, the 19th.
Okay, yeah, I'll check.
Okay. All right, let's try to shoot for Tuesday, the 19th at 10 a.m. is our next meeting. And like I said, if you've got some ideas of changes, maybe prepare your motions ahead of time, and then we can work through it as we go through it. And as that way, Charlie has it in writing or something like that, so he can input it better. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Charlie, are you able the 19th to be here? Yeah, it's even better. And that way we could, get a vote and put it in and take it out. Any questions on that? So I assume.
Jack, are you make any assignments as far as, or how is it coming with visits to the townships and the other villages? Because we
What I-
really need to kind of get over that hurdle at some point in time.
Right. Well, I wanted to before, I was going to assign some people, different townships and stuff like that, but I wanted to have a working draft of that ordinance so we could take it to these townships and say, this is what we have. Are you willing to sign off on this? I don't want to give them a copy of a draft resolution that we haven't finalized, we changed, and it's something they don't like. They don't particularly like part of the thing. So once we get this, a majority of the verbiage of it, of what we're requiring, whether it be tires, stuff like that, we can then present that to the township and let them decide, and the different cities too. Maybe they'd want to, adopt ours on top of theirs. So that's what I was thinking there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So Jack, just to be clear, like, you want us to, I mean, we have a motion, we have an ordinance that held over and it's, so are you looking for someone to make each one of those things, to go through each line item by line item, or just someone, a motion to amend the current ordinance to change the age of things, or how are we going to task what we're going to vote on?
Well, what information that I believe that we needed to do was to make a motion to change those particular ordinances. But like you said, on the county board, they motioned to table it based on the sheriff's questions. So Charlie, do you know, that's what we're going to be doing? That's what we need to do, is make motions and to make changes to that ordinance, correct?
Correct. So that's when you suggested that everybody come with the motions in mind. I think that's what you do. Is I don't think you have to go line by line unless there's problem areas that you think that need to be discussed.
Like we could say, okay, the first part, item A through 1 through 2, is everybody good on that? And then if everyone's good, we'll tend to, sign off on that, tentatively agree to that. And until something comes up where we need to insert, I'm just going to say age, in there. We want to change that age. So someone makes a motion that we'd like to make that change, have a discussion on it, and then we have a vote on it, and then we go from that vote. And that's what's added to the new draft.
Okay.
So that's what I was told, that how we have to do this. So.
Okay.
All right. All right. So our next meeting, 19th October, 10 o'clock. Motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Meeting closed.